Have you ever considered what our world would look like if evil had triumphed over good? If the cosmic battle between God and Lucifer ended with darkness claiming victory? Most of us assume God's victory was inevitable, but today we're going to explore the terrifying alternative. What if Lucifer, the morning star, actually defeated the Creator and seized control of the universe? This isn't just a thought experiment. It's a journey into understanding what's truly at stake in the spiritual realm that surrounds us every day. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 14:12, "How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations." But imagine if this fallen angel had succeeded in his rebellion. What kind of world would we inhabit? What kind of creatures would we be? The answers will shake you to your core and reveal why God's victory matters more than you've ever realized. If Lucifer had won the cosmic war, our Earth would never have emerged from its initial state of formlessness. Genesis 1:2 describes our planet as Tohu Bohu, without form and void, before God's creative work began. In this alternate reality, darkness would remain the permanent condition of existence. The Hebrew word Choshek, absolute darkness, would eternally cover the face of the deep, with no divine light to pierce through it. Think about it. No let there be light moment would have ever occurred. The universe would remain a kingdom of chaos, where disorder reigns supreme and nothing exists except endless destruction. The primordial waters described in Genesis would never have been separated, leaving creation drowning in a cosmic flood of darkness. This is the universe Lucifer would have maintained, formless, empty, and devoid of the order that makes life possible. Scientists tell us that our universe operates according to precise mathematical laws that make life possible. But in Lucifer's domain, these laws would be replaced by unpredictable chaos. Imagine a world where gravity might work one moment and fail the next, where light itself would be corrupted and twisted. Mayite and Choshek, who would give darkness? Lucifer would. And it would be all we'd ever know? The beautiful cosmos we observe through telescopes, galaxies, nebulae, stars, would never have formed from the initial singularity. Instead of expansion and creation, there would only be contraction and destruction. No stars would shine in Lucifer's sky, no planets would form, and no galaxies would spiral through the void. Just emptiness forever. Can you imagine living in such a reality? In Lucifer's victory scenario, humans would never have been created in God's image, as Genesis 3:26 describes. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. These divine words would never have been spoken. Instead, if Lucifer created beings at all, they would reflect his own distorted nature, creatures of pride, malice, and rebellion. Without the neshama chayim, the breath of life from God, humans would lack souls. We would be empty vessels, walking corpses serving the will of Satan. The divine spark that gives us the capacity for love, compassion, creativity, and free will would be absent. We would be slaves to darkness, with no concept of what we were missing. Think about what makes you human: your ability to love, to create, to choose good over evil. In Lucifer's world, these qualities would be foreign concepts. The Imago Dei, the image of God within us, is what separates us from mere animals. Without it, we would be something else entirely, something twisted and hollow. The biblical account tells us God formed Adam from the dust and breathed life into him. But in Lucifer's realm, any beings created would be formed from darkness and filled with emptiness. No Garden of Eden would exist, no paradise where humans could walk with their Creator. Only a barren wasteland where survival, not relationship, would be the highest goal. What kind of existence would that be? With Lucifer victorious, God's redemptive plan through Jesus Christ would never have unfolded. The proto-evangelium, the first gospel promise found in Genesis 3:15, would never have been spoken. There would be no promise that the seed of the woman would crush the serpent's head. Sin and death would reign unchallenged, leaving humanity forever under the control of our ancient enemy. John 3:16 tells us, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son." But in Lucifer's world, no such love would exist. No incarnation would occur, no divine word becoming flesh to dwell among us. The cross, that ultimate symbol of sacrificial love, would never stand on Calvary's hill. Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, would never come to seek and save the lost. Imagine a world with no possibility of forgiveness, no concept of grace, no hope of resurrection. The book of Revelation describes a new heaven and new earth where God will wipe away every tear. But in Lucifer's domain, tears would flow eternally with no hand to dry them. Death would be truly final, with no hope beyond the grave. The Passover lamb, the Day of Atonement, the entire sacrificial system pointing toward Christ. All these foreshadowings would be meaningless in a world where Lucifer reigns. The prophetic voice would be silenced, the messianic hope extinguished before it could even spark. Ein Tikva, no hope, would be humanity's eternal condition. How could anyone survive in such despair? If Lucifer had seized control, creation would never have been completed as described in Genesis 1. The 6 days of divine creative work would have been interrupted, leaving an unfinished and broken universe. The sun, moon, and stars would never have been set in the heavens, leaving earth in perpetual darkness. Genesis 20:11 tells us God commanded, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit." But in Lucifer's realm, no such command would bring forth life. The earth would remain Tohu Bohu, formless and void, a barren wasteland incapable of supporting life. No trees would grow, no flowers would bloom, no rivers would flow to nourish the land. The beautiful biodiversity we see around us, from the depths of the oceans to the heights of the mountains, would never have emerged. The Hebrew concept of Tav Miyad, very good, that God pronounced over creation, would be replaced by Rer Miyad, very bad. Creation would reflect not the glory of a loving creator, but the emptiness of a rebellious usurper. Scientists estimate our universe contains over 2 trillion galaxies, each with billions of stars. But in Lucifer's cosmos, there would be only void and darkness. No light from distant stars would reach us, no planets would orbit in their courses, no cosmic dance would unfold according to divine choreography. The universe would be a cold, dead graveyard, reflecting the emptiness in the heart of its proud conqueror. would you want to exist in such a universe? With Lucifer triumphant, fallen angels, those described in Jude 1:6 as having abandoned their proper dwelling, would rule alongside him. These beings would impose a new order where power and cruelty replace justice and mercy. The B'nai Elohim, sons of God, would become agents of darkness rather than messengers of light. These spiritual entities would transform Earth into an arena of eternal conflict and struggle. Instead of angels praising God's creation, as described in Job 38:7, where the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy, we would have demons cursing creation and spreading misery throughout the cosmos. Imagine a hierarchy of evil, where the strongest oppress the weakest, where no concept of righteousness exists, where might makes right, and compassion is seen as weakness. The book of Daniel shows us angelic beings assigned to nations, but in Lucifer's world, these would be demonic oppressors, not heavenly protectors. The spiritual warfare described in Ephesians 6 would be no contest. With God defeated, the Cosmocratoras, rulers of this dark world, would have free rein to torment and destroy. No armor of God would be available to stand against them. The heavenly hosts described in Revelation 12 would have been vanquished, leaving no force to oppose the dragon and his angels. How terrifying would such a world be? In a world ruled by Lucifer, truth itself would be the first casualty. John 8:44 identifies Satan as a liar and the father of lies. And his victory would establish deception as the foundation of reality. The concept of absolute truth would be replaced by shakar, falsehood, as the organizing principle of existence. The Torah, God's instruction and law, would never have been given to guide humanity. No 10 commandments would establish moral boundaries. No prophets would speak divine truth to power. Instead, Lucifer's twisted commandments would demand evil and punish good. Imagine a world where killing is rewarded, stealing is celebrated, and betrayal is the highest virtue. Recent archaeological discoveries at sites like Qumran have revealed how ancient communities preserved sacred texts at great personal risk. But in Lucifer's world, no sacred texts would exist to preserve. The wisdom literature of Scripture, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Job, would never have been written to help humans navigate life's challenges. We would be left without guidance, without wisdom, without truth. The very concept of emet, truth, would be foreign to human understanding. Jesus declared, "I am the way, the truth, and the life" in John 14:6, but in Lucifer's domain, there would be no way, no truth, and no life, only wandering, deception, and death. Information would be weaponized, knowledge corrupted, and wisdom perverted to serve the ends of darkness. Could any society function in such a reality? Perhaps most devastating of all, in Lucifer's world, love would be entirely absent. The Bible tells us in John 4:8 that God is love, but with God defeated. Love itself would be removed from the fabric of reality. The Hebrew ahava, love, would be replaced by sina, hatred, as the dominant force in relationships. Think about what this means. No mother would naturally love her child. No friendship would be based on genuine affection. No romance would bloom from mutual admiration. All relationships would be transactional at best, predatory at worst. the beautiful bond of marriage described in Genesis 2:24, where two become Basar Eked, one fleshed, would be replaced by temporary alliances of convenience and exploitation. Recent studies in neuroscience have shown that human brains are wired for connection and empathy. But in Lucifer's world, these neural pathways would be rewired for self-preservation and cruelty. The oxytocin that floods our systems when we bond with others would never be released. The joy of connection would be unknown to us. The greatest commandments, to love God and love our neighbors, would never have been given. The sacrificial love displayed on the cross, where Jesus gave himself for others, would be incomprehensible in a world ruled by selfishness. Vayhavta Laricha Kamoka, love your neighbor as yourself, would be replaced by Vizina Laracha, hate your neighbor. Can you imagine existing without ever experiencing love? In Lucifer's domain, justice would be completely inverted. The righteous principles established in books like Leviticus and Deuteronomy would never guide human societies. Instead of mishpat, true justice, we would have only avil, injustice, and wrong. Amos 5:24 calls for justice to roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. But in Lucifer's world, injustice would flood the earth, drowning the weak and vulnerable. The powerful would prey on the powerless with no consequences. No concept of human rights would exist, no recognition of inherent human dignity, no protection for the marginalized. We see this pattern emerging even in our world when people reject God's principles. Recent news has shown us glimpses of what happens when justice is perverted, innocent people imprisoned, guilty parties walking free, corruption flourishing at every level of society. But in Lucifer's complete victory, these would not be exceptions, but the universal rule. The prophets who cried out against injustice, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Micah, would never have raised their voices. The psalms that plead for God's righteous judgment would never have been composed. Tidek, Tadak, Turduf, justice. Justice you shall pursue, would be replaced by Camus, Camus, Turduf, violence. Violence you shall pursue. What kind of society would emerge from such a foundation? If Lucifer had won, beauty itself would be eliminated from creation. The stunning diversity of colors, sounds, tastes, and textures that enrich our experience would never have been designed. The Hebrew concept of Hod Vuadar, splendor and majesty, would be unknown in a universe of ugliness and decay. Psalm 19:1 declares, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands." But in Lucifer's cosmos, the heavens would declare only emptiness. The skies would proclaim only darkness. No sunrise would paint the horizon with gold and crimson. No sunset would bathe the world in gentle amber light. The arts that elevate human experience, music, painting, dance, poetry, would never have developed as expressions of creativity and joy. If they existed at all, they would be twisted into propaganda tools to glorify darkness. The Song of Songs, with its celebration of beauty and romantic love, would never have been written. Yapham, beautiful, would be replaced by Mekhor, ugly, in every aspect of existence. Archaeological discoveries have revealed that even our earliest ancestors created art. Cave paintings dating back 1,000 years show humanity's innate desire to create beauty. But in Lucifer's world, this impulse would be crushed or corrupted. No Sistine Chapel would inspire awe. No symphony would stir the soul. No poem would capture the human experience. Would life be worth living without beauty? This terrifying vision of Lucifer's potential world serves as a powerful reminder of what's truly at stake in the spiritual battle. The chaos and darkness we've described highlights the beauty of God's restoration plan, beginning with those first words in Genesis 1-3. Let there be light. God's victory isn't just about survival. It's about the rebirth of hope, love, and purpose. When we understand what could have been, we appreciate more deeply what is. The Hebrew concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world, takes on new significance when we realize how broken the world would be under Lucifer's rule. The Bible tells us in Colossians 3:13 that God has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son He loves. This rescue isn't abstract theology. It's salvation from the horrific alternative we've been exploring. Every time we experience beauty, truth, love, or justice, we're experiencing the fruits of God's victory over chaos. Archaeological evidence from ancient Near Eastern cultures shows that many believed chaos monsters threatened to undo creation. The Bible affirms God's power over chaos in passages like Psalm 7:314, where God crushes the heads of Leviathan. This wasn't just ancient mythology. It was recognition of the cosmic battle between order and chaos. A battle God has won. Do you recognize the evidence of this victory in your own life? While Lucifer didn't win the cosmic war, we still see his influence in our fallen world. The Bible acknowledges this reality when it calls Satan the prince of this world in John 20:31 and the god of this age in 2 Corinthians 4:4. We live in a battlefield where both kingdoms are visible. When we witness natural disasters, disease, war, and human cruelty, we're seeing glimpses of what Lucifer's complete victory would have looked like. These are areas where the Olam Hazeh, this present age, still shows the effects of the fall. But these are temporary incursions, not the final reality. At the same time, every act of love, every moment of beauty, every instance of justice and truth reveals God's continuing sovereignty. The fact that goodness persists despite evil's best efforts testifies to which side is ultimately winning. Romans 8:37 reminds us we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. Recent scientific discoveries about the fine-tuning of universal constants for life point to a cosmos designed with purpose, not ruled by chaos. The human conscience that instinctively recognizes right from wrong points to moral law written on our hearts. These are not accidents. They're evidence of God's victory continuing to unfold in our world. Which kingdom do you see operating in your own life today? If Lucifer had won, all life and meaning would have been destroyed. But the reality is that he lost. We live in a world where God said, "Let there be light," and that light continues to shine. As John 1:5 tells us, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Our choice today is whether to stand with the light or allow Lucifer's darkness to dominate our hearts. Joshua's ancient challenge still rings true. Choose this day whom you will serve. Will you align yourself with the Creator, who brings order from chaos, or with the Destroyer, who seeks to return all things to Tohu va Bohu? This isn't just abstract theology. It's the most practical decision you'll ever make. Every moral choice, every act of love or selfishness, every pursuit of truth or embrace of lies aligns us with one kingdom or the other. My Ladonai lay, whoever is for the Lord, come to me, was Moses' call in Exodus 30:126, and it echoes through the centuries to us today. Let this exploration of what could have been motivate you to seek God, who always wins and restores all things. Revelation 201:5 promises, I am making everything new. This is the ultimate answer to Lucifer's destruction, not just defeating evil but transforming it into good. The question isn't whether God will win. He already has. The question is whether you'll join the winning side. What will your choice be? Can you imagine the world we've described? A world without light, without love, without hope. That's what was at stake in the cosmic battle. That's why God's victory matters. That's why your decision about which kingdom to serve is the most important choice you'll ever make. Hineni, here I am, should be our response to the God who saved us from such a fate. Will you stand with him today?